Chapter 9:16 Danger is Coming. Zhang Yi knew long ago that his ability limit was definitely not limited to the Delta level. But it was the same as Yuan Kongya at the beginning. The more he advanced in the future, the more supernatural origins he needed to obtain. And once he passed that level and officially broke through to the Epsilon realm, his ability would also undergo a qualitative change. He saw this clearly on Yuan Kongya at the beginning. So, he rejected Linghu Feishue's request for a trade without hesitation. I'm sorry, I still have some use for Nero's origin. If there is a chance, I will exchange it with you next time, Zhang Yi said with a smile. Linghu Feishue's expression was a little regretful. This is the origin of a captain. Of course, she knew how difficult it was to kill a captain-level alien. Take this time for example, if Zhang Yi's strength was not much greater than his, he would not be able to kill him at all. Even so, Zhang Yi also spent a lot of effort. I really need this origin. You can name a price. As long as I can afford it, we can talk. Linghu Feishue looked at Zhang Yi very seriously. She wanted to improve so much. If it was something else, Zhang Yi might really be willing to give it to him just to make friends. After all, Linghu Feishue came all the way here to help him. But the captain-level origin is too valuable, and Zhang Yi can't exchange it. Zhang Yi touched his nose. There are people around me who need this thing more than you. I hope you can understand. Linghu Feishue sighed helplessly. Indeed, the captain-level origin can make a Delta-level ability grow rapidly. I understand. Although she felt a little regretful, she didn't delve into it. Zhang Yi watched the people of the Rose team wake up Zhu Yonk and others, and then send them to the ship. However, after Zhu Yonk woke up, she seemed to become stupid. Her eyes became wise, and she didn't even recognize Zhang Yi when she passed by him. What Zhang Yi didn't know was that Zhu Yonk had suffered too heavy a blow at the hands of Nero. Guna had her clothes stripped off in public, completely humiliating her dignity. Nero's electric shock therapy caused serious problems in her brain. The female soldier, who sent Zhu Yonk on board suddenly, let out a surprised cry. Zhang Yi looked back and saw a wet patch on the snow. Zhu Yonk was actually incontinent. This was indeed a very normal phenomenon after being electrocuted. Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows. It seemed that although Zhu Yonk had saved her life, she would not be able to take care of herself in the future. At least she is still alive, and Zhu Zheng can't find fault with me. Zhang Yi shrugged and didn't take it seriously. Just as he was about to say goodbye to Linghu Feishue and leave Luoyan Island to return to Tianhai City, Gu Yufei, a member of the Rose team, suddenly covered her head and knelt on the ground with a painful expression. No. They are warning me. Zhang Yi and Linghu Feishue looked at Gu Yufei. Zhang Yi frowned. What's going on? Who is warning me? Linghu Feishue's expression became serious. Gu Yufei's ability, Arya, can communicate with living beings. She can receive frequencies that ordinary humans cannot receive. At this moment, in Gu Yufei's ears, the dolphins that had been helping her before sent a hurried warning from the far distance. Something very scary is coming this way. Run. Gu Yufei shouted loudly. But soon after she finished speaking, Zhang Yi also felt the change in the seawater. The seawater around Luoyan Island suddenly rose a lot and flooded the beach. From the direction of the sea, a long white line was quickly becoming clear. Linghu Feishue's face suddenly changed. Tsunami? Of course, an ordinary tsunami would not make the Rose team so alert. In Zhang Yi's mind, a person flashed at the speed of light. On the sea, the person he feared the most. That is, the strongest person in the Columbia Ocean Fleet, the Epsilon-level alien with an ability index of 18,000 points, who Zhu Zheng had reminded him of. But how could he appear here? With just a little thought, Zhang Yi had the answer in his heart. The Tianlong pirates have informed the Columbia Navy. This group of pirates that roamed the Starry Sea originally moved between the major forces. They had already offended the Huashu Kingdom, and now they had to rely on the Columbia Navy. Zhang Yi didn't even think about it. I'll retreat first. He left the sentence, and then directly opened the space shuttle to escape to the north. But a moment later, he returned to Luoyan Island and stood beside Linghu Feishue. Ling Hu Feishua glanced at him and said jokingly, I didn't expect you to be so loyal. No one escaped. Zhang Yi took a deep breath. Do you think I don't want to dash? There is no escape. Around Luoyan Island, in the sea area more than 10 miles away, an extremely terrifying scene appeared at this time. Densely packed, countless billions of giant sea beasts have surrounded the entire sea area. The huge tsunami is caused by the movement of seabed creatures. No matter which direction Zhang Yi escapes from, he will inevitably face the endless tide of sea beasts. Those huge sea beasts are terrifying in both size and momentum. Among them, there are even captain-level deep-sea monsters comparable to fin dragons. Zhang Yi has never seen such a terrible scene. To put it bluntly, if such a huge force hits the Jiangnan region, Blizzard City will not be able to hold up without the god of death of love. But 2 hours. Zhang Yi took out Nero's head without hesitation, and then began to absorb his essence on the spot. At this moment, Zhang Yi also felt the extreme sense of oppression. He hadn't even seen the controller of the sea beast tide. There is no doubt that it is the mysterious Columbia Epsilon strongman. The members of the Rose team were also pale, but they showed extremely high combat literacy. They did not panic, but quickly prepared to fight. The crew opened all the missile launch bays. The Blue Rose battleship was their greatest reliance. Ling Hu Feishua's right hand was on the sword. When she accidentally saw Zhang Yi's actions, she couldn't help but be stunned. Can you continue to improve your strength by absorbing his essence? Probably. Zhang Yi just responded vaguely. And this sentence made Ling Hu Feishua's pupils shrink slightly. She certainly understood what this sentence meant. For her, and most captain-level aliens, the upper limit of their lifetime is the Delta level. They may not be able to cross the 10,000-point threshold and achieve qualitative change in their entire lives. Therefore, the further they go in the future, the more difficult it is to improve their ability index. And there is only one kind of person like Zhang Yi who has not been cultivated by a big force, but has broken through the 9,600-point ability index at a terrifying speed and is still continuing to improve the value. He is not a Delta-level existence. No wonder Zhu Shuai asked you to carry out this mission,
she said softly.
Chapter 9:17 Absolute Power. Luoyan Island was surrounded by countless terrifying sea beasts. Those huge figures rose and fell in the seawater, and just looking at their size made people tremble from the soul. Ling Hu Feishua spit out a huge, colorful bubble from her mouth, and then attached it to Zhang Yi's body. Soon, this layer of bubble adhered to Zhang Yi's body. This is my ability, coding, which can enhance your defense and allow you to move and breathe underwater. Ling Hu Feishua reminded Zhang Yi and did not forget to bless her team members with the ability of coding. Zhang Yi couldn't help but say, what a comprehensive ability. Both offense and defense, nothing to say. However, the situation he was facing at the moment made Zhang Yi unable to remain calm. Although the sea beast tide was dangerous, it would not take his life. As long as he burst out with all his strength, he could still escape from the sea beast tide. However, he didn't know where the mysterious Epsilon-level alien was. If he didn't know the opponent's strength and rushed out with all his strength to escape, he might be in great danger. In fact, Zhang Yi didn't wait for long. Soon, a whale as huge as a hill emerged from the sea beasts. All the sea beasts bowed down and respectfully made way. On the head of the huge whale stood a man wearing a mask and a Columbia Navy combat uniform. He crossed his arms, with a protruding double chin and a sparse beard, looking down at the blue rose in front of him. There was a natural arrogance in him. The Navy of Huashu? But you don't look like you are from the East China Sea region. You are the culprit who sank the Copernicus at sea, right? Lord of the Sea, John Cartier's asked indifferently. Ling Hu Feishua replied, you have the wrong person. That incident has nothing to do with us. We are a coastal patrol force affiliated with the Jiangnan region. Cartier showed a look of contempt at the corner of his mouth. I don't care about those. He pointed down. Now, all of you kneel down. If you want to live, Zhang Yi said to Ling Hu Feishua, it seems that there is no room for negotiation. What will happen if we are caught by the Columbia navies? Linghu Feishue looked at Zhang Yi in surprise. But she still replied, "They will do everything they can to dig out the secret of the mission from you." Zhang Yi shrugged. "I thought to myself, if I am really caught, I will never give them the opportunity to torture and extort a confession." He continued to ask, "Do you know his ability?" Linghu Feishue replied, "There is only one ability known at present. That is, he can control marine life below Delta." Zhang Yi's mind quickly began to analyze the battle situation. The ability index is an assessment of the comprehensive ability of the alien. This data comes from the official. Although it is not absolutely accurate, it must be the most reasonable judgment based on the information currently available. If Cartier's ability can control so many sea beasts, it means that his personal combat power will not be too outstanding. Otherwise, his comprehensive ability is definitely far more than 18,000 points. Zhang Yi then told Linghu Feishue his guess. Linghu Feishue glanced at him and said speechlessly, "Even so, when he dared to appear in front of you and me, it proved that his personal combat power was not something that we, the Delta-level aliens, could contend with. What's more," she swept her eyes to the countless deep-sea monsters in all directions, "it's hard for us to deal with these things now." Zhang Yi had a different opinion. He narrowed his eyes slightly, and his confidence in escaping increased a lot. As long as Cataladi's personal combat power was not too much higher than his. Then, with his current strength, he still had a good chance of blocking Catalai's attack and then escaping quickly. But in that case, the Rose Squad and the people on the ship would not survive. There was no way. He could not care about the lives of others. Seeing that Zhang Yi and Linghu Feishue did not obey his orders, Catalai's frowned in anger. "You are really naughty. I don't like naughty children. It's time to teach you a lesson." He waved his right hand gently. The next moment, many of the giant sea beasts surrounding Luoyan Island began to gather their strength. Some opened their mouths wide, some had pupils that glowed with colorful light, and some giant shells that were more than 10 meters long opened their shells. A terrifying aura began to gather. These beasts ranged from low level to high level, but there were actually 20 to 30 auras at the captain level. Such an attack made Linghu Feishue's face turn ugly. Madman. She didn't expect that Cartiers would actually use heavy hands directly. Because according to common sense, the senior leaders of the Columbia Ocean Fleet must want to leave them alive to obtain intelligence. But she didn't know that Cartiers was known for his madness in the Ocean Fleet. If it wasn't necessary, Douglas wouldn't have wanted to send him out. Linghu Feishue gritted his teeth and decisively took compound number 5. Facing the casual attack of the Ypsilon-level alien, the captain-level alien had to do his best to deal with it. Coding. Linghu Feishue took a deep breath and then spit out one huge, colorful bubble after another. Layer after layer wrapped the entire blue rose. At the same time, she also gave the order to launch missiles. Even so, Linghu Feishue's heart was sinking. She had to pin her last hope on Zhang Yi. "I hope that this Jiangnan region's top master with the title of Absolute Defense can play a role." Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes and took compound number 2. He hadn't reached the point of desperately fighting yet and would not use a drug like compound number 5 that would consume a lot of energy. Then, he unfolded the 2 realms absolute not within Linghu Feishue's coding. Missiles flew high into the sky and then rushed towards the beast tide, dragging blue flame tails. There was an astonishing vibration in the sea, and a large number of sea beasts were directly blown to pieces. This powerful energy impact would cause serious damage to even captain-level sea beasts. However, they had already been controlled by Cardials and had long lost their self-awareness. They did not even have the idea of evading, and only knew to destroy the battleship according to the will of the master. The energy attack of the beast tide also reached the periphery of the blue rose in an instant. The 10 layers of coating could not withstand the attack of dozens of captain-level sea beasts at all, and they were broken layer by layer before even 5 seconds. The hearts of all the members of the Rose team were in their throats. However, those colorful supernatural attacks slowly lost their luster in front of a last layer of defense, Zhang Yi's 2 realms absolute not, and quickly shattered and disillusioned. Chapter 9:18 Lord of the Storm. Zhang Yi blocked the attack of the sea beasts. This made the smile on Cartier's face fade a lot. There are such people? He couldn't imagine that his attack would be blocked by a Delta-level alien. At this time, Zhang Yi also felt the pressure from the Epsilon-level alien. Cartiers can make these sea beasts attack at the cost of their lives. But Zhang Yi doesn't want to fight them to the death. He plans to escape. Goodbye, if we are destined to meet again, we will meet again. I wish you good luck. Zhang Yi turned around without hesitation and ran in the opposite direction of Cartier's, without hesitation. And his action obviously attracted Cartier's attention. A cruel smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. It seems that the guy who destroyed the Copernicus is you. In the sea, the beast tide was boiling, and those mysterious and powerful sea beasts roared and attacked Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi didn't care about these intensive attacks and fled at full speed. However, what he didn't expect was that Cartiers directly gave up the blue rose and chased after him. Cartier dived into the seabed, and his speed in the water was so fast that it was unbelievable. Waiter. As an alien who could control all the spirits in the ocean, he could also control the seawater. His speed underwater was countless times faster than on land. Zhang Yi's eyes were a little solemn. There were too many sea beasts around, and all kinds of attacks flew over, making it impossible for him to open the dimensional door to escape. And relying solely on the ability to fly in the air, he would soon be caught up by Cartier. Zhang Yi raised his right hand and fired a micro-torpedo to create chaos. But before the energy of the underwater explosion could spread, Cartier pinched his hands, and then was completely wrapped up by a ball of seawater and disappeared. Cartier rushed out of the seawater, like a swordfish, roaring into the air, and then casually stepped on the head of a giant sea beast. A gelatinous liquid appeared in his hands, which quickly expanded. As Cartier's hands shook violently, the gelatin turned into water droplets all over the sky and quickly shot towards Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi was suspended in the air, feeling the astonishing pressure, and immediately opened the dimensional gate for defense. But in just a moment, he felt a strong sense of separation. The gelatinous liquid was cutting his space like a knife. Is this the difference in strength? Zhang Yi's eyes began to become solemn. The last time he faced such a huge crisis was when he was fighting Yuan Kongya. But at that time, he knew he had the capital to drag it out. However, at this time and place, even though he has become the top master in the Jiangnan region,
But
his opponent is also an Epsilon-level alien with richer practical experience and even stronger strength. Cartier put his hands on his waist and smiled, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. Oh, I didn't expect you to be so tenacious. I really can't help but look up to you. But you'd better surrender now so that I can take you back to report. Otherwise, if I really kill you by accident, that would be an ending that no one wants to see. He shrugged with a helpless expression. But there was clearly a playful look in his eyes, like a cat catching a mouse. Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes. He still had one last resort that he hadn't used. That was compound number 5. He knew that it was a drug that could stimulate the potential of the human body. According to this theory, when he used it, his strength could be greatly improved in a short period of time, reaching the level of Epsilon. In that case, even Cardiels could not stop him from escaping. It was interesting to say that although Zhang Yi had always been resistant to the chemical drugs in Blizzard City, but this thing could really play an important role at a critical moment. Zhang Yi was unwilling to put his life in the hands of others. He took out compound number 5 from the alien space. Just as he was about to take it, a sharp whistling sound suddenly came from his ears. In the eastern sky, a black light flashed like a meteor. But the meteor did not disappear, but quickly approached the side, and it became bigger and bigger. The whistling sound came from that mysterious object. Cartier's eyes became solemn when he saw the thing. Zhang Yi looked at the black object in some surprise. The reason why he was stunned was that he didn't know what it was. To the naked eye, it looked like a black top spinning at high speed and flying towards the sea area. In a flash, the black top arrived here. But if it was described by the standard of a gyroscope, it was a little too big, even bigger than any sea beast that appeared in this sea area. Puff, 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 puff. The black top quickly passed over the sea. In an instant, countless sea beasts were cut into pieces. Large pieces of blood and flesh flew everywhere, like a meat grinder rushing into a pigsty. Zhang Yi didn't even have time to react. The huge black gyroscope broke through the encirclement of the sea beasts, and then the speed of rotation quickly stopped. Finally, with a boom, it fell in front of him. The seawater was splashed hundreds of meters, almost splashing Zhang Yi's face. Only then did he see clearly what it was. Turtle. A huge sea turtle, a giant black sea turtle that was several times larger than the blue rose, appeared between Zhang Yi and Cartier's. You dare to touch my people from Huashu. Lord of the Ocean, your hand is too long, isn't it? A dull voice came out of the giant turtle's mouth, authentic Mandarin.
Zhang Yi only understood at this time. The
one who came to support him was the Epsilon-level alien from Huashu. Huashu's second war zone has a combat power second only to the Shengjing district of the headquarters and the East China Sea district with the strongest navy. As expected, they also have strong men of the Epsilon level. When Cotalady saw the giant turtle, the smile on his face faded, and his eyes were obviously much more solemn. Big Turtle, I didn't expect you to come too. Zhang Yi was still surprised by the arrival of the two Epsilon-level strongmen. At this time, the Blue Rose had already sailed near him, hiding behind the giant turtle. Linghu Feishua's face has always been relatively calm. She looked at Zhang Yi and said, "When I came here, I encountered Cotalady, so I know he has been looking for your location. Therefore, I contacted the East China Sea region in advance and asked them to send people to support." She glanced at the huge black turtle in front of her. He is one of the 4 spirits in the East China Sea region Navy, Xuanwu. Chapter 919. Invite you to have tea. Linghu Feishua's expression was hard to read, but Zhang Yi knew in his heart that facing a person like Cotalys who is far superior to them, asking for help from the East China Sea region was the only option. No one would go against their own lives. Xuanwu stood between Cotalys, Zhang Yi, and the Rose team, like an indestructible mountain. However, how could Cotalys give up the mission that was about to be in hand so easily? He put his hands on his hips and sneered. Then suddenly he attacked. Countless sea beasts let out a long and terrifying roar, and then began to gather the original force, preparing to fire the energy cannon. Cotalys opened his right hand, and countless colloid water droplets condensed behind him, shooting towards Xuanwu. Xuanwu's eyes were fixed on him. Facing Cotalys's attack, he opened his huge mouth. A black beam of light instantly penetrated the entire sea area. The huge black light column was tens of meters wide, easily crushing the energy attacks of the sea beasts and smashing all the sea beasts in the entire sea area into powder. At this moment, Zhang Yi was extremely shocked. The power of the Epsilon level was so powerful and transcendent. The Delta-level aliens were too weak in front of them. Cartier's controlled the original water and fought with Xuanwu. However, after one move, except for the huge waves and howling winds in the entire sea area, neither of them suffered any damage. Xuanwu said in a deep voice, "This is not the first time we have fought each other. There will be no result if we continue to fight." Besides, he rolled his eyes and looked up at the sky. "If you don't leave, our help will come." Cartier's face couldn't help but change. After all, this is close to the East China Sea region. With the firepower coverage capability of the East China Sea region, it is completely possible to carry out targeted bombing on him thousands of kilometers away. Even an Epsilon-level alien must be in awe of the god of death of love. What's more, Xuanwu appeared here today, and he was indeed not sure that he could defeat Xuanwu and bring back that man. "Well, you're lucky this time." Cartier's looked at Zhang Yi deeply, then turned around and flew southward like a fighter plane. Due to the high speed, it even stirred up a large ring of sonic boom mist on the water. Xuanwu looked at Cartier's going away and then made a dull sound of relief. "Fortunately, I scared this guy." Zhang Yi heard this and couldn't help but ask loudly, "Any questions?" Xuanwu glanced at Zhang Yi with his huge eyes and said in a muffled voice, "The The Battle of Ypsilon is extremely dangerous, and that guy is a notorious madman. I don't want to fight him to the death. Besides, if we fight seriously, you have almost no chance of survival.
Zhang Yi did not comment on this.
He admitted that Cartier's and Xuanwu were very strong. But if he really wanted to escape, the aftermath of their attack would not kill him. Cartier's fled with the sea beast tide. Some of the sea beasts left behind just regained consciousness. Xuanwu said, "I'm hungry." Then he ignored Zhang Yi, Linghu Feishue and others and rushed over to start a bloody hunt. Although his body was huge like a small mountain, he was very flexible in the sea. Those deep-sea beasts could only be preyed on by him. Even beasts as big as him would be easily torn apart by his claws. Zhang Yi looked at the dark skin and felt that it was simply a steel fortress on the sea. "It's time for me to leave." Zhang Yi turned and flew towards the north. But a dull voice sounded in his ears like thunder. "Is it too rude to leave without saying goodbye?" Xuanwu's voice had just fallen, and the sea in front of Zhang Yi rolled up like a bed sheet. One wave after another was hundreds of meters high, blocking Zhang Yi's way. In the sky, a huge storm began to roll up, falling from the sky to the sea, turning into a terrible giant tornado. Zhang Yi's body was affected by the strong wind, and his flight was greatly affected. Looking around, the entire sea was filled with huge tornadoes, and he couldn't even use space travel. These Ypsilons are all monsters. Zhang Yi began to have bad thoughts in his mind. At this time, Xuanwu suddenly opened his mouth and aimed at Zhang Yi. A huge suction force came out of his mouth, dragging Zhang Yi back. "Since you're here, then chat with me." Zhang Yi didn't feel Xuanwu's malice, because Time Echo didn't issue a warning. At this time, it was obvious that he was unable to confront Xuanwu head-on. Zhang Yi gave up the idea of resistance and let Xuanwu suck him into his stomach. Originally thought, Xuanwu's body was a space made up of flesh and blood. But after flying in, Zhang Yi realized that it was not that simple. After entering from the throats on both sides were actually blocked by the strongest. The wall was covered with tough metal. The wall was lit, so it was not dark. The copper wall around the throat was spiral and extended into the inside. It looks like a large gun barrel. Zhang Yi landed on the ground and subconsciously looked around. Not long after, Linghu Feishue also flew down from above. She landed next to Zhang Yi and looked around with a surprised look. At this time, dense, clattering sounds came from all around. Zhang Yi was alert, but he did not dare to act rashly. He saw a group of huge crustaceans crawling out from the corners around the pipe. The body size was about the size of an adult, and the shape was a bit like a crab, but it had more than a dozen legs than a crab. The shell on the body was silver and looked very strong. "Chaos, Guanghan, come in." Such a voice came from deep inside Xuanwu. Zhang Yi was completely shocked. Could it be? Xuanwu is actually a huge mechanical turtle. His reason told him that this was absolutely impossible. Such a huge mechanical turtle cannot be built without years of mechanical manufacturing. And its movements are too flexible. If it is really a machine, it can only be said that Huaxi's military industry is hundreds of years ahead of foreign countries. With such curiosity, he and Linghu Feishue walked into the body of Xuanwu under the escort of the group of crustaceans. Not long after, they came to a huge white room. According to the location, this should be the area in the center of the abdomen. But they did not see the stomach, but a huge and gorgeous room. The decoration inside is magnificent and elegant and luxurious. And at the tea table in the room, there sat a young man with a blue light all over his body, looking at them with a playful look. Chapter 9, 20 Compound Number 3. Zhang Yi asked, "You must be Xuanwu?" The young man took a sip of coffee slowly. "Maybe." Zhang Yi. The young man pointed to the sofa next to him, motioning Zhang Yi and Linghu Feishue to sit down and talk. Zhang Yi and Linghu Feishue looked at each other. The two had already arrived at Xuanwu's territory, so they sat down on the sofa. The young man then said leisurely, "I am Xuanwu, but what you see is not my body. As for my body, it is outside of you. Well, strictly speaking, you are now in my stomach." Seeing Zhang Yi's surprised look, the young man explained. This huge sea turtle is my body, and what you see is my spirit. That's it. Zhang Yi didn't expect it to be like this. It was the first time he saw the so-called spirit. But his eyes fell on the coffee in the young man's hand. Spirit can drink coffee? The young man smiled slightly, and his hand loosened, and the coffee cup turned into a pile of mosaics and disappeared. The coffee table in front of him also disappeared. Although the spirit body cannot drink coffee, I can get the pleasure of drinking coffee through data. The taste, flavor, and aroma are transmitted directly to my brain, and there is no need to bear the side effects of overeating. Xuanwu even crossed his arms and said proudly, even the pleasure of X can be directly obtained through data. How about it? Isn't it very convenient? Zhang Yi was amazed after hearing this. I didn't expect it can be done this way. But if this is your body, then... He looked at the various furnishings in the room. He thought of the steel fortress-like buildings in Xuanwu's body. You can't restore your human form? Xuanwu lowered his eyes. That's right. My mutation is irreversible. My body can only maintain the appearance of a giant sea turtle. I have to stay in the cold, deep sea on weekdays.
But it doesn't seem to be a bad thing.
I'm a diver. By the way, I also have an English name, Dave. At this time, Linghu Feishue crossed his legs, looked at Xuanwu and asked, Where are you taking us? Zhang Yi and Linghu Feishue have been controlled by Xuanwu and cannot escape at all. Zhang Yi can take drugs and try desperately, but doing so is very risky, and even if it succeeds, it may cause serious injuries.
He will not take such a risk.
Hearing this, Xuanwu raised a playful smile at the corner of his mouth. Do you still need to ask this? Of course, I will escort you back to the East China Sea Regional Naval Base. Linghu Feishue's eyes became a little sharp. Zhang Yi's expression was normal, but his eyes became a little deeper. Sure enough, it was just as he thought. When dealing with the outside world, Jiangnan District and Donghai District can be brothers. But once the external conflicts are resolved, they will also compete with each other. Zhang Yi has the information about the source of God in his hands, and Donghai District certainly wants to pry open his mouth and obtain information. At present, the situation is stronger than the person, and it is useless to say more. We can only see how Zhuzheng and Donghai District communicate. However, it is impossible to expect Zhang Yi to keep his mouth shut and keep secrets under torture. But now, Zhang Yi has to test the attitude of Donghai District first. Linghu Feishue stared at Xuanwu and lowered the brim of his hat helplessly. In the face of absolute strength, impotent rage has no meaning and will only bring unnecessary trouble to oneself. Xuanwu snapped his fingers. Soon, those giant crustacean insects crawled over with its click. 2 insects came in front of them, then opened the shells on their backs and took out 2 blue potions. I don't want to cause unnecessary trouble, but you two should cooperate with my work. How about it? Xuanwu looked at Zhang Yi and Linghu Feishue with a smile. Zhang Yi looked down at the potion and asked, Can I ask what this is? Xuanwu didn't answer. Linghu Feishue had already spoken. Compound number 3. It's a potion that can make aliens temporarily lose their abilities and turn them into ordinary people. Zhang Yi thought for a moment. It is obviously unwise to risk his life with Xuanwu at this time. The East China Sea District just wants to obtain the information in his hands, not to harm his life. So Zhang Yi directly took compound number 3 and injected himself. Linghu Feishue glanced at Zhang Yi and also injected himself. They are all smart people and know that there is no point in struggling in vain. Linghu Feishue suddenly said, Since we have fallen into your hands, there is nothing to say. But can we contact the district? Report the current situation. Xuanwu spread his hands. Don't be nervous. We are allies. And you two don't have to be hostile to me. I'm just following orders. Besides, I saved your lives, didn't I? According to the agreement, the information in Chaos's hands should have been shared with the East China Sea region. Zhang Yi smiled and said, If that's the case, why use this method? Xuanwu held his chin and thought for a second. Well, this is what the headquarters meant. Maybe the senior people think it's better to take the initiative in their own hands. You're right. Zhang Yi responded lightly. He could already sense that the power in his body was being suppressed rapidly. Compound number 3 is a rare potion that he couldn't exchange in the region. I didn't expect it to have such a powerful effect. No wonder it can't be open to the outside world. I think this is a weapon controlled by the headquarters, specially used to suppress powerful aliens. He closed his eyes and secretly tried to communicate with the alien space. Unexpectedly, it was successful. Zhang Yi thought to himself, Compound number 3 can suppress the operation of the alien energy in the body, but it seems that it doesn't work for some special, non-consumable abilities. After all, the drug has only been developed for about a year, and its ability is not that comprehensive. Zhang Yi knew it. Since he can still use space, even if his ability in the offensive dimension becomes weak, his strongest defensive ability can be retained. Xuanwu suddenly smiled and said, "Don't be so nervous. I am just doing some things to you according to the process. Maybe one day, everyone will be on the same battlefield, fighting for a common goal. Well, there is still some time before the journey back. Do you want to play cards?" Linghu Feishue's eyes flashed with strange colors. Why not? Zhang Yi looked at Xuanwu. What's the point of just playing like this? Why don't we add some prizes? Xuanwu looked at him curiously. Oh, are you up to something? But I tell you in advance that I am the most tight-lipped man in the world. Zhang Yi smiled slightly. Just think of it as exchanging information. As the highest-level combat power in our respective war zones, we already have information that the other party is interested in. As you said, we are allies, not enemies. Don't worry, you can refuse to answer questions that are too sensitive. Xuanwu thought Zhang Yi's proposal was very good. He smiled and nodded. That's great. Let's get started. Chapter 9:21 Becoming a Captive. Zhang Yi and Linghu Feishue joined Xuanwu's gambling game. They were playing landlord, and the stakes were a question. If it involved sensitive areas, they could refuse to answer, but they could not change it. Because sometimes, refusing to answer is also a kind of answer. In other words, not only did they have to win, but they also had to be careful when asking questions. Otherwise, the other party had the right to refuse. Playing cards was Zhang Yi's area of expertise. When he was working in the warehouse, he often played cards with his colleagues. The most important point was that he could cheat. The cards Xuanwu used were not special, and Zhang Yi had them in his warehouse. And as long as 1 or 2 useless cards were put away when playing cards, the winning rate could be greatly improved. Then, at the beginning of the next round, the cards were put back when the cards were drawn. In this way, it could be done without anyone noticing. For an experienced card player, this method was not difficult to detect. However, Xuanwu obviously did not have such a high gambling skill, and he did not expect Zhang Yi to cheat using his supernatural power. The three of them sat around a table, and the rhythm of a few minutes of a game passed quickly. Zhang Yi won more and lost less. Unless the opponent was lucky or he deliberately let him win, he would not lose at all. This process was an exchange of information for the three people. The three were very secretive about their own abilities and did not talk about them in detail. However, Zhang Yi asked Xuanwu and Linghu Feishue how their abilities were awakened. Linghu Feishue lowered the brim of her hat and answered very simply and directly, "Experiments in the science department." She looked at Zhang Yi and Xuanwu and said lightly, "In short, it was an experience so painful that people don't want to recall it." Xuanwu raised his eyebrows. "I am almost the same, but a little different." Zhang Yi looked at him curiously. "Oh, how is the different methods?" Xuanwu said lightly, "Before the Ice Age came, I was the owner of a diving club with some wealth. After the end of the world, I took a boat with several partners and planned to escape to a small island near the equator to avoid the disaster." He pouted and spread his hands. "Later, we had a small conflict." Zhang Yi rubbed his chin. "A small conflict? What happened next?" Later, Xuanwu looked nostalgic. "They threw me into the sea to feed the sharks." At this point, he joked, "There are many great white sharks in that sea area. They bit me and almost tore me in half. It hurts so much." He smiled, but there was a deep and dark light in his eyes. Thank God I didn't die. Zhang Yi laughed. I understand. Because of the fear of the deep sea and the fear of sharks, you chose to turn into a giant sea turtle in this way. The heavy shell and huge body are for your own protection, right? Maybe, who knows? Xuanwu said leisurely. But you are really a genius, Linghu Feishue said with heartfelt emotion. You are born Ypsilon, which is a unique talent among millions of people. Xuanwu disagreed. After the end of the world, there are countless people like me who have experienced death. It's just that my luck is a little bit better. The two looked at Zhang Yi and asked him about the conditions for awakening his superpowers. Zhang Yi coughed. First of all, I was a warehouse manager at that time. The two nodded one after another. No problem. This makes sense. Secondly, I was also killed by someone around me. Zhang Yi ignored the fact that he was reborn. In his mouth, it became a superpower awakened at the time of death. He must be reserved about his abilities. And he knew that Linghu Feishue and Xuanwu must have something they didn't say. The three asked each other along the way and automatically skipped sensitive questions, and no one would cross the line. However, they exchanged information very friendly with each other. Suddenly, Xuanwu put down the cards in his hand and said to Zhang Yi and Linghu Feishue, "We're here." Zhang Yi and Linghu Feishue knew that they had arrived at the military port of the East China Sea region. Zhang Yi thought about it and put down the cards in his hand. King Bomb plus 3 twos. One last question, if we go ashore, how will your people treat us? Xuanwu shrugged. I really don't know. I am only responsible for executing the mission, and the rest will be handed over to the civil servants. Click, click. The parasitic beetle in Xuanwu's body crawled over, and Xuanwu pointed outside. You two, please go out. As Xuanwu's spirit, he cannot leave here, and its body is unlikely to go ashore again in this lifetime. This Ypsilon-level alien from the East China Sea region, who was once thrown into the sea to feed sharks, will be accompanied by the endless ice sea for the rest of his life. Zhang Yi stood up. We will meet again soon. Xuanwu supported his chin with one hand and responded with a smile. Very good, I hope we can travel together as comrades next time. Zhang Yi and Linghu Feishue left Xuanwu's body under the escort of the beetle. They walked out of Xuanwu's mouth, and the cold sea breeze outside blew on their faces. In front of them was a huge harbor with warships standing in rows. The Blue Rose had been controlled by Xuanwu and brought back by it. The members of the Rose team on it were also invited down. The girls looked at Zhang Yi and Linghu Feishue with angry expressions on their faces. It was a bit funny that they would be captured by their own allies. Zhang Yi didn't have much expression on his face. He was not a soldier, and he didn't have any dignity of a soldier. In short, he was just an employee, and he would not keep his mouth shut for Zhu Zheng. Flexibility is the way to go. Linghu Feishue's expression was different from his. She had a sneer on her face, and her sharp eyes were covered by the brim of her hat. On the port side, a group of soldiers in combat uniforms surrounded several officers, waiting for them here. The two leading men had the rank of Major General on their shoulders. One wore glasses and had a gentle face, and the other had a narrow scar on his eye and a cold face. After Zhang Yi and Linghu Feishue came out, Scarface waved to the soldier next to him. Immediately, two fully armed soldiers took out handcuffs and walked towards Zhang Yi and Linghu Feishue. Zhang Yi slowly narrowed his eyes, and Linghu Feishue was also furious. What does the East China Sea District mean by this? Are they treating us as prisoners? Scarface sneered. Facing an alien of your strength, we can't be careless. At this moment, the officer wearing glasses next to him waved his hand. Brotherly, they are guests. We'd better treat them with courtesy. He looked at Zhang Yi and Linghu Feishue with a smile. What's more, they've been injected with compound number 3. As smart as they are, they will not make unnecessary resistance. Not to mention that Zhang Yi and Linghu Feishue were injected with compound number 3. Even if the two of them were in their prime, it would be difficult for them to stir up any waves in the East China Sea military port. Xuanwu was watching behind them. With squinting eyes, he walked up to Zhang Yi and Linghu Feishue and said with a smile, "Welcome to Donghai City. I am Liang Ximiao, the Minister of Intelligence of the East China Sea region. This time, I have come to receive you on the order of the Supreme Commander of the East China Sea region, Commander Li Guangxiao. After he said that, he stretched out his hand to the side and made way. You two have worked hard in the battles at sea. We have prepared food and restrooms for you and the members of the Rose Squad. Please come this way. Zhang Yi looked at Ling Hu Feishue. Ling Hu Feishue said nothing. At this point, there was nothing they could do except retain some integrity. Thanks for staying tuned, dear viewers. This video ends here. More to come soon. I appreciate if you can subscribe to my channel if not already. Thanks and love.